So Ravenclaw is a keyboard shortcut layout strategically designed to very quickly perform common editing tasks with keyboard shortcuts. It was designed in a way that would allow you to initiate most of these commands with your left hand on the keyboard and your right hand on your mouse, allowing you to move through the program in the most efficient way possible. To me, having a solid keyboard shortcut layout like this is key to getting into flow state when editing. You want to minimize spending time on repetitive tasks and maximize your time in a creative flow. In this video, I'm going to walk you through some of the most important Ravenclaw keyboard shortcuts and explain exactly what they do. You can also download a PDF cheat sheet down below so you can always keep it on your computer and reference it whenever you need it. Now, if you're just starting out in the program, memorizing these shortcuts right now isn't necessary, but it can definitely be helpful. The important thing is that you are aware of the actions you perform the most within the program and to make sure that you're using a keyboard shortcut to perform those actions to save you time. So let's get into it. All right, so the very first shortcut we should know about is Command I. This is not a new or custom shortcut. This is a shortcut that just comes with DaVinci, and it's to import new media. When you press Command I, you're presented with a Finder window, and you can select what media you want to bring into your media pool. So let's select all of this footage here. Let's click Open, bring it into the project. I'm not going to change my project frame rate because I've already set it to a project frame rate that I want. And just like that, we've imported our footage. So Command I, import media. Now, something I do all the time within my media pool is I create new bins or folders, and the shortcut to do that is Command-Shift-N. That is the exact same shortcut that I use on the Mac operating system as well. So I can create a new folder like that, rename it. Let's call this Air2S, and why don't we just drag all of this footage into that folder, just like that. Now, when I'm in my media pool, I can select any one of my clips over here, double click it, and it's gonna load it up in my preview window over here. Now, the next shortcuts I wanna show you are 1, 2, and 3. And these shortcuts basically allow me to play around with the playback of my footage in the preview. So if I press 3, it's gonna start playing forwards. If I press 3 again, it's gonna start playing forwards at 2x speed. We can see this 2x pops up here. If I press 3 again, it's gonna start playing at 4x speed. Again, 8x speed. So depending on how many times I press 3, it's going to continuously start playing faster and faster in the preview here. Same thing goes for 1, except in reverse. If I press 1 once, we're going to start playing backwards at normal speed. If I press it for the second time, we're going to start going 2x speed backwards. One more time, 4x, one more time, 8x. And now at any point, I can press 2 to stop playback. So 2 is basically an alternative to the space bar, which allows you to start and stop playback. So I'm going to press 2 again. It's going to start playing forwards. So 1, 2, and 3 are shortcuts I use all the time, not just when I'm using media within the media pool, but when I'm navigating my timeline down here as well. So why don't we bring some media into our timeline here? So I'm just gonna select all of this footage over here. And what I can do is actually just press 6, because 6 is a shortcut for insert. So if I press 6, we can see that all of the footage that I had selected over here has now been inserted into my timeline. So every single clip that was in this folder. We can see that we've also created a new timeline too, because by default, if I just drag any media from my media pool into the timeline window here, it's going to automatically create a new timeline if there isn't already a timeline here. So we just learned about the shortcuts 1, 2, 3, and 6. What about 4 and 5? Well, 4 and 5 allow us to create in and out points. So why don't I select a clip here in my media pool, any one of these clips. I can play through this clip and go to the point where I want the in point to be. So maybe around here, I can select 4 for the in point. We can see within this little timeline over here, we've created an in point. And if I press 3 to play forwards, I can stop right there, press 5 to create an out point, and now I've created this in and out range right here. If I hit 6, it's going to import that little section, that little in and out point right here. So that in and out point that we selected right there, we've now brought it into the timeline here by selecting 6. So this is a great alternative to just bringing the entire clip in. If you just want a little section of a clip, hit 4 and 5, make those in and out points, and then hit 6 to insert it into your timeline wherever your playhead is at. Now the standard shortcuts for in and out are I and O, but those shortcuts are further to the right on your keyboard, so you actually have to move your hand a lot more to get to I and O. But I still have I and O set to in and out as well, so you have both options. You can use 4 and 5 or I and O, whatever your heart desires. Now, 4 and 5 are shortcuts not just used for media that you're viewing in your media pool. We can also use 4 and 5 to create in and out points here on our timeline. So if I want to maybe just render a certain section of my timeline, not the entire thing, I can click 4 over here, and we've created that in point over here, and then maybe I can select 5 over here. So now we have this in and out range over here. And when we go to the deliver page, we have the option to render just the in and out range. We can see that right here. So, you know, if you have a pretty long timeline and you don't want to render the entire thing, maybe there's only one clip that you want to render from within that timeline, you can just create that in and out range and just export that one section or one individual clip and not have to export the entire timeline. So next up, we have option X. If I select option X, we can see that we've cleared that in and out range on my timeline here. This is something I use all the time because I'm constantly making new in and out points on my timeline for many different reasons. And when I'm done using that in and out point, I'm just gonna hit option X to remove it. And then I'm back to a normal timeline with no custom in and out point. Now, another really important shortcut is just X. If I bring my playhead to any clip within my timeline and I select X, we can see that a new in and out range has been created that is the exact length of the clip that my playhead is over top of. So this is another really important one. You know, if I'm wanting to export just one clip, I can simply just hit X and create that custom in and out range that is exactly the same length as the clip that my playhead is over top of, and I can just export that. Or, you know, if I'm doing some kind of sound design and I want to just loop a certain section of my timeline, I can create that in and out point very quickly just by hitting X. So that's a great shortcut. Another really good shortcut for custom in and out ranges is Shift A, and that is mark selection. So let's say I have a selection of clips over here and I hit Shift A, we can see that we've created an in and out point for that selection of clips in my timeline. This is a great way to very quickly make an in and out range here without having to, you know, go here, click 4, go to the out point, click 5. A lot of time it can be much faster to just select the group of clips that you want to create that mark in and out point for, and then just hit Shift A. And just like that, we've created the in and out range just for that group of selected clips. So I'm just gonna hit option X to remove that in and out point. And the next group of shortcuts I wanna show you is Shift 1 through 9. So if we press Shift 1, we are presented with the project manager. We have all our databases here to the left. We have all our project files within the selected database over here to the right. And this is a window that I access all the time for things like dynamic project switching, copying one project file from one database to another, creating new project files. This is a window that I use regularly, and instead of having to go down here to the bottom right corner and clicking the little house icon, I always just click Shift 1 to open this. It's much faster and it's a shortcut I use all the time. Next up, we have Shift 2 through 8. Basically, these shortcuts just allow you to very quickly navigate between all the different pages of the program. So Shift 8 is the deliver page, it's the last one. Shift 7 is Fairlight. Shift 6 is the color tab. Shift 5 is Fusion. Shift 4, edit tab. Shift 3, cut tab. Shift 2 is the media tab. So depending on what tabs you go to most often, you might want to memorize the shortcuts for those individual tabs. For example, the edit tab, Shift 4, just by clicking that, you can get to it pretty quickly. Now, obviously, it doesn't take too much time to just click between these tabs down here at the bottom. But, you know, if your hands are already on the keyboard and you just want to quickly get to the edit tab, for example, you can just hit Shift 4 and you're there right away. And of course, we have Shift 9, which brings us our project settings. By default, we go to the master settings over here, and this is where I choose things like resolution for my timeline and also the frame rate. And I also am able to choose my working folders for where I want to export proxies, cache files, gallery stills, all that important stuff. All stuff we're going to be diving into within this course. But all you need to know right now is that Shift 9 is the shortcut to get to your project settings. So next up, we have Tab. When I press Tab, it hides my media pool. If I press it again, it will show me my media pool. This is a really, really handy shortcut I use all the time because a lot of the time when you're done using the media pool, you're done importing the media that you want to bring in, you can just hit Tab and free up all that real estate, spread out your timeline from the complete left side and right side of your screen to fill up as much real estate as possible. This is the best way to edit. You don't want your media pool to be taking up unnecessary space when you're not using it. So whenever you're done using your media pool, hit Tab, close it off, and free up more precious real estate for the windows that are actually important for editing. Now, next up, we have Shift Tab, which will open and close the inspector on the right side. So I created both of these shortcuts for both the media pool and inspector because those are the windows that I open and close the most out of any of the tabs. So I wanted to create a shortcut that would allow me to very quickly open and close any of these windows. So Shift Tab allows me to open the inspector. I press it again and it will close it off. Next up, we have the tilde key. And if you don't know what the tilde key is, it's the button just to the left of the 1 right underneath the escape button. It's that weird looking squiggly line. And if we press it, we can see that the program now has entered full screen mode. So we no longer have that menu bar at the top. If we want to access the menu bar, we got to hover our mouse to the top of the screen and that menu bar comes back into display. This is great because it allows you to fill your entire screen with the program and not waste any real estate with the menu bar up top or the application bar down below. you just have the program filling the entire screen. And if at any point you want to leave this full screen view, you can just press the tilde key again, and we're back to where we started. But for this tutorial, I'm gonna leave it in full screen. So I'm gonna press it again, and we're back in full screen. Next up, we have Command-Shift-K, and that just brings up our keyboard customization window. In here, we are able to choose what keyboard layout we wanna be using, and we can also customize any of our commands with any keystrokes that we want. This is a very powerful tool that I use all the time. And of course, there is a separate video dedicated just to this, so make sure to check that out. So next up we have Q, W, and E, and these are shortcuts that allow me to trim my timeline in a cool way. So first, let's start off with Q. So let's say I have this clip over here and I don't want the beginning of it. We can see that the drone kind of dips down, and let's say I want the clip to start here. Well, what could I normally do? Normally I could maybe select the blade tool, cut it over here, go back to the normal tool, delete this clip over here, this section that I don't want, and then maybe delete the gap as well, and then I've deleted that first part of the clip. Well, that takes a lot of work. A lot of steps are required to get to this point. So what I can do instead of doing all of that is simply just select Q on the keyboard. When I select Q, we can see that it cuts everything to the left of the playhead on that clip. And not only did it just cut everything to the left of the playhead, it also deleted that section, so everything to the right jumps over. So if I was to just cut this clip over here and delete this section, we can see that we are left with a gap over here, and that just gives us an extra step to remove that gap. We can select the gap and delete it, but that is the old school way of doing it. By hitting Q, we are able to not only separate this first segment of the clip and delete it, we're also deleting the gap that would have been left over if we went the traditional method as well. So simply by pressing Q, we've done all those different actions with one keyboard shortcut. So that's an awesome keyboard shortcut. I use it all the time. Now, the opposite of Q is E. So E does the exact same thing, but it trims everything to the right of the playhead on the selected clip. So if I press E, we can see that the end of that clip is now gone, and everything to the right of it has rippled over, and there is no gap left over. Q and E, amazing shortcuts. Now, my index finger usually sits on E on my keyboard. That's kind of where I rest my hand, and we can see my ring finger is on Q. Now, between those two fingers, I have W, and W basically just allows me to split the selected clip. So with any clip in my timeline selected, I can just press W, and we can see that it's added a cut to that selected clip. So this is just a really fast way for me to make cuts to any clip. Personally, I never ever use the blade tool. This is the alternative. If you go over to the blade tool or press B, which is the shortcut to enable it, you can also make cuts like this. But in my opinion, I never ever do that. I like to just stay in the regular selection mode here with my cursor. The shortcut for that is A. And I like to just press W to make a cut wherever the playhead is. Now, one really important thing to notice is that whenever I move my playhead, we can see that whatever clip my playhead is over top of automatically gets selected. We know that it's selected because it has that red border around it. So this is automatically happening as I move my playhead around. Now, if this isn't happening for you in your timeline, that's because selection follows playhead is turned off. So what we're going to want to do is go up here to timeline in our menu over here and just make sure that selection follows playhead is turned on. I always leave this on because I always want whatever clip is underneath my playhead to automatically be selected, because it allows me to use the Q, W, and E shortcuts so much easier. Q, W, and E will not work if the clip is not selected under the playhead. So by making sure that selection follows playhead is turned on, we're able to use Q, W, and E very fast and efficiently to make our selects. So next up we have S, which is ripple delete. If I select this clip and press S, we can see that we've now deleted that clip, but we also deleted the gap that would have been left over if we were just deleting the clip. So let's hit Command Z to undo that. And you can see if I select this clip and just press the delete button, it just deletes the clip, but it doesn't delete the gap that's left over here. The beauty of ripple delete is that it not only deletes the clip, but it also deletes the gap, saving you a lot of time in the long run. So next up we have Command D, which allows us to delete gaps in our timeline. So if I have a group of clips selected over here, let's say this group here, and I wanted to delete all the gaps between all of these clips, what I could do is hit Command D, and we can see that it's grouped all of those clips together by deleting all of the gaps between them. This is a very handy shortcut, especially when I'm making selects. You'll see me using this one all the time. And next up we have Command Z, which is one that we just used, and that is to undo whatever it is that you just did. And if you want to continuously undo to go back to a previous stage of your project, you can just keep hitting Command Z and it'll take you there. And if you find yourself going too far, you're hitting Command Z too many times, you can hit Command Shift Z to redo. So if I hit Command Shift Z, we are moving forwards. So this is kind of a way for us to move forwards and backwards in time. Command Z to go backwards, Command Shift Z to go forwards. So next up, we have all of our arrow keys. Up and down, when I'm in the timeline view, allow me to jump between the clips. If I press up, I'm going to be going to the previous clip. If I press down, I'm going to go to the next clip. So this is just another great way to navigate your timeline very quickly. If you want to jump to the start or end of any clip, you can just use the up and down arrow keys. Now, the left and right arrow keys allow us to move around one frame at a time. So if I press the right key, I'm moving one frame forwards. I can keep hitting it. I'll just continuously go one frame forwards. The left arrow key allows me to go one frame back. I can just zoom in on my timeline right here, and we can see the cursor moving one frame at a time, left and right. That is what the left and right arrow keys allow you to do. Now, if we combine Shift plus the left and right arrow keys, we can jump 1 second at a time. So this is just a great way for us to jump around with the playhead a lot faster. You know, moving left and right one frame at a time can definitely be tedious. And a lot of the time, just moving around one frame at a time is not enough. So if you just hold Shift, move around, you could jump 1 second at a time. So next up, we have a couple different shortcuts to perform this same command, which is zooming in and out of your timeline. So the first one is the plus and minus buttons on our keyboard. The plus allows us to zoom in, and the minus allows us to zoom out. So that's pretty standard. Most people know about those shortcuts, but in Ravenclaw, we've actually customized some shortcuts to the left of our keyboard, so we don't even have to use the right side, and that's Shift W and S. So if I hold Shift and W, I'm able to zoom in. Shift S is to zoom out. Now, in all honesty, I actually use those keyboard shortcuts the least. What I do most of the time these days is just hold Option and I scroll on my keyboard just like this. I'm able to zoom in and out of my timeline just like that. And I don't just use the Option key, I also use Command to move left and right. So if I hold Command and scroll, I'm able to move left and right. And if I hold Shift, I'm able to shrink the size of the tracks just like this. So scrolling up, I'm able to shrink it. Scrolling down, I'm able to expand it. And the combination of those three modifier keys with my scroll wheel has been very, very useful for me to navigate my timeline in a very fast and efficient way. Command to move left and right, Option to zoom in and out, and Shift to shrink and expand each individual track. These shortcuts are huge in my personal workflow and are a big reason why I'm able to navigate my timeline so fast and efficiently.